Hello chess friends and welcome to Azarov's chess channel and welcome to another great game from the Skilling Open in 2020. It's Sergey Karjakin with the white pieces against Magnus Carlsen with the world champion with the black pieces. So far, it has been really a great tournament, but this game, Karjakin-Carlsen, I think it really is the best game so far, with great tactics, with great opening preps, with great strategies, with great attacking elements, with all of these beautiful elements that we love in a chess game. Be prepared, really, this is really a wild one. So Karjakin opened with the move e4. So I wanted to tell you also at the end of the video, I'm going to show you the current result because this was the round 10. So the day 2 ended with the round 10. I'm going to show you who is so far in the top 8 who are maybe moving up into the quarterfinal stage. So e4, e5, knight to f3, played by Karjakin. We have d6, the Philidor defense by Carlsen. Carlsen can basically play whatever he wants to. He has really a good opening prep in every opening. But in my opinion, when you start maybe to play chess, don't try immediately the Philidor. Try really maybe some Sicilians, Rui Lopez, Italian games, really the normal and classical defenses, at least for a while. Maybe then you can study the Philidor because the Philidor can be really complicated. So d4, we have e takes d4 by Carlsen, the exchange variation. If you take with the queen gets a little bit exposed in the center, can be again kicked away with the move knight to c6. So that's why knight to d4. We have knight to f6, knight to c3, and now bishop to e7, the normal Philidor defense setup. And now I really like the move g3. I really like this line by Karjakin because in some occasions we could try maybe something like bishop to c4, but then when black castles, we are vulnerable with some tactics, knight to e4 followed with d5, and maybe in some occasions this bishop can be with c6 and b5 kicked away from the c4. Then black can maybe get another tempo on the knight, then can get another tempo on the knight on c3. So basically, when we place our bishop on c3, these three pieces can be maybe vulnerable to your opponent's attacks on the queen side. So that's why I really love this idea g3 followed with bishop to g2, because we're developing the bishop on a very nice square, and we still have this opportunity when we play maybe something like f4, e5 to open the long diagonal for the light square bishop. So rook to e8, we have castling, and now bishop to f8. Here h3, very important move by Karjakin in this opening preparations. What we can notice about the pawn structure now, that we have here a 4 versus 3 situation on the king side. So that's the side basically where white should make progress. That's the attacking side. We don't want to make something here on the queen side. We don't want to play a3, b4. We don't want to attack the queen side. Our main goal is f4, g4, g5. Getting really compact position first around the square e4, because that's, I think, black's target. Black is attacking the weak e4 pawn. That's his main problem in the position. So I think this game can be played for both sides. But again, I'm repeating you, please don't maybe try, if you're beginning to play the Philidor, you see how complicated this opening can be. In the game, Magnus plays knight to d7 with preparation here to play knight to c5 and attacking, as I said, the e4 pawn. So g4 immediately by Karjakin. This is really cool so far. Immediately attacking the king side. Knight to c5. We have rook to e1. So far the e4 is protected. We have c6. Very important move also by black. This is the so-called Boleslavsky wall pawn structure. This can appeal in this perch defense, Philidor defensive setup. This pawn structure is very important as it restricts this minor piece activity on these 4 centralized squares by white. White cannot jump on these 4 centralized squares. But the main issue still is the weak d6 pawn. That's, I think, now white's target to attack. We should attack somehow the d6 pawn and also make further progress with f4, g5 moves. What the good thing about black setup is that the bishop is now at protecting at least the d6, and the bishop is not vulnerable to any attacks by minor pieces. So far, this defensive setup could work. And in the game, Karjakin played a very aggressive g5 immediately. We have knight to d7 and now f4. So you see, Karjakin is not losing any moments here. d5, of course, is not possible. That's, I think, a move you would love to do from black's perspective in order to improve your pawn structure. But still, here, look at this development. It's really, as I said, not the classical systems that I love to see by Magnus Carlsen. This is really already sort of blocked system by Black. Black is really bit pushed away by White's progress in the game. A5 played by Magnus. What Magnus wants to do is, of course, the queenside expansion, because that's the side where Black has, of course, the pawn majority. Here, Black is, of course, a 4 versus 3 situation. But the A5 move is also a supportive move because it supports the further outposted knight on C5. So in the game, we have bishop to E3, we have queen to C7, and now A4 played by Karjakin, because now there was really the serious threat by Black to play the move B5. The C6 is protected, and now we could make some kind of an activity here with B4, A4, B3, A3, and similar ideas. So queen to C7, as I said, very important. So that's why Karjakin blocks really the potential B5 move. So knight to A6, which was maybe now a slightly inaccuracy. Knight to b6 maybe slightly better. At least we're threatening here the move knight to c4, attacking the bishop and also the pawn on b2. But White would be forced maybe to play something like b3, because again this d5 idea doesn't work. We can simply even pass through with the move e5, and we can have, I think, a good protection. So that's why after the move a4 here, knight to a6, as I said, played by Magnus, we have queen to d2. We have really a compact setup now by White. What White should never allow in this position is to get some kind of a counter activity in the center. So we want to keep the center protected and then slowly but securely push our pawns on the king side with h4, h5, even f5 if the position allows it. So in the game, Carlsen played knight to c5. We have rook to d1, really this centralizing pieces idea, really getting the pieces first on the best course, because we cannot just rush into attacks. We have to play first our nice setup and then strike back with some tactics. Bishop to d7, we have knight to e2. Very nice move by Karjakin, because still he has a good protection of the e4. What he wants to do is remaneuver his pieces towards the king side. As I said, we have the pawn majority. We have the 4 versus 3 on the king side. We want to maneuver more and more pieces on that side where we are better. So this is really a nice strategy. I've explained this strategy in one of my basics in chess videos, this pawn majority attack. I'll show you, of course, the link of the video. You can check it out. I've created this strategy videos. You can maybe try it out. Sometimes when you notice that you have maybe a pawn majority on one side, you should maybe attack that side. So here rook to d8, we have knight to g3, and now queen to c8. Magnus attacks, of course, the h3 pawn. We have king to h2, protecting everything. So everything is glued together by White. It's really a positional battle, but still we have opportunities to crack the position. So in the game, d5 played by Magnus, and okay, it is probably the only way, as I said, to make some kind of a counter attack, but basically losing some pawns here. And in the game, Karjakin tried e5. He's not allowing Magnus any counterplay in the center. He's keeping his pawn structure compact, but even e takes d5 I think is perfectly fine. After something like c takes d5 we can take, and maybe Black can attack back with bishop to c6. The queen is vulnerable a little bit by Black's attacks on the d file, but here I think we can simply take bishop takes c5, bishop takes d5, rook takes e8. This would be, I think, the liberating line, because we're deflecting the rook from the d file. After rook to e8 we can take, and now after further trades of pieces, this is a more simplified line, but still I think White is a pawn up. White should be better in this position. So, but Karjakin, as I said, really I loved his game. Played simply e5. Is now not allowing here to Magnus Carlsen to spread his wings. He's waiting. He knows that he will probably get his chances on the king side. The queen is a little bit out of game by Magnus Carlsen, so that's, I think, the piece that Magnus needs to improve. In the game, knight to b4. Finally getting this knight activated, and of course attacking the c2, because the queen is a little bit now stuck to the defense of the c2 pawn. You don't want to have, of course, your queen as a defensive piece. You want to have your queen active. So that's why very important move, this move knight to b4. So in the game, Karjakin tried queen to f2, which is very important. The first idea about this move is to make further progress with potential f5 move. and now also protecting our c2 pawn. So in the game, b6 was played, bishop to d4, we have bishop to f5 by Magnus, and now rook to e2. Again, Karjakin is simply protecting everything. We have g6. Here, if you tried immediately, instead of this bishop to f5, if you try, for instance, g6 immediately, then we can play b3. Everything is, as I said, fixed. Still, I like White's position more because we have even opportunities to play h4, h5. But okay, in the game, bishop to f5, played by Carlsen, and we have rook to e2, g6, fixing the pawn structure, fixing really the position on the king side, because we are not allowing this move. This move is very, very tricky. If that happens with some progress, then black could have really some troubles. In the game, knight to f5, we have queen to f5, and now h4. Because we're simply continuing our attack. We are not scared because that's the side, as I said, we should really push there. In the game, knight to e6 was played by Magnus, and now comes really the critical moment of the game, because Magnus has now locked his queen a little bit. You see, the queen is endangered. Of course, the pawn on f4 is attacked, so that's why rook to f1, but now Magnus plays c5. And now bishop to e3, d4, the fork on the bishop and the knight, but Karjakin finds really a great counterattack. You see, the queen is trapped here, and Magnus plays now really a tricky line. D takes e3, which is of course forced. We have queen to g3, the queen is attacked, and the queen doesn't have any more squares to escape. So here Magnus plays now, I think, the main mistake in this game. He plays queen takes c2. A better idea instead of this move is to really sacrifice the queen in a different way. Knight to f4, after something like bishop to f5, we can at least take the rook. That's the most important thing. Knight to e2 comes also with an attack on the queen, so that's why you have to take. But now g takes f5 can be played, and now after maybe something like c3, I think there is at least some kind of a way that we can take out this pawn on e5. That's the most important thing. After rook to f5, bishop to g7, and I think we can really grab this knight, grab this pawn with the knight. White would be forced to probably play something like king to g2, because then also there are some threats with bishop to e5. But maybe, really maybe, this line would be playable. I'm not sure. You can be really the judge of that. The evaluation here is better for white, but I think on this human level, maybe a top grandmaster like Magnus Carlsen could hang on to this position. Magnus has basically one pawn and the knight and a rook for the queen, or rook and a bishop and a pawn for a queen. Maybe this could be playable if Magnus manages to build some kind of a fortress with his pieces. The fortress idea could work, I think, here, to simply keep all the pieces glued together, to keep them compact. But Magnus makes, as I said, the main mistake. Queen takes c2, and this is not good because we have rook takes c2, knight to c2, and now f5. This f5 move is again not the best of moves. Here bishop to g4 is better, because after something like bishop to g7, king to h1, maybe rook to e3, rook to d3 can be played, but still at least we're attacking here the potential h5 move. In the game, f5 was played, and now Magnus plays again a mistake, rook to d2, because now maybe it was time to regroup again a little bit with knight from c to d4 or knight from e to d4, really cementing this knight on the centralized square d4, getting at least some kind of a compact position. As I said, our main idea when you play without the queens, without the queen, is to create some kind of a fortress. Knight to d4, then we're again threatening at least e2, but Magnus goes simply here after the move f5, rook to d2, which is not good, king to h1, and now after g takes f5, bishop to f5, we have e2. This is not good, because here Karjakin simply gets this pawn, rook to e2, and now here comes really a nice tactical shot. Bishop takes e6, rook to e6, but now queen to f3, and it's basically game over, because there is this double threat. Of course, you cannot protect everything. You cannot protect your f7. You cannot also protect your rook on e2. This is simply bad, and now Magnus simply grabs the rook. Knight to d4, it's of course perfectly fine, but now rook, queen to c4, we have knight to c6, queen to b5. Okay, Magnus grabs another piece, but another pawn, but now queen to b6, knight to c4, and now queen to b8, rook to e4, attacking the pawn on h4, rook to f4, trading off more pieces. And again, the main idea would be probably some kind of fortress, but it's simply, I think, too bad, because after knight to b2, Karjakin can open the position in front of the king with the move h5. We have c4 here, queen to d4 attacking the knight. Here we can grab now finally the c4 pawn, knight to c5, and now very important move g6, h takes g, h takes g, now knight to e6, and now queen to d5. What we want to do is, of course, stay, because if f takes g6, we'll simply take, and afterwards we'll take down this pawn and move up our king. And of course, I think there is a way to include this king into the game, and we can also checkmate the king, black's king, with the king and the queen. So that's why after remove queen to d5, we have a4, queen to f5, again with the same idea, but now after move queen to d7, here in this position, Magnus Carlsen resigned. The knight is attacked, you cannot do anything. If you take, again, we'll simply take out the knight, and afterwards we'll find a way to take out this pawn too, and simply, as I said, include our king into the game, and it's game over. Incredible game, great tactics, but as I said, Magnus, even with the queen down, had, I think, some opportunities to regroup, to keep a compact position, made these mistakes afterwards and got punished. Sergey Karjakin played, I think, an outstanding game with great strategies, with his 4 versus 3 attack on the king side, with simply improving the position of minor pieces, getting him towards the center, then striking back with some tactics, trapping the queen, seeing also some good lines. Basically, the main mistake that he made was the f5 move, but still, even after that move, he was slightly better in the position. So pure domination, I think, in this game. And as I would love to mention, I really don't care sometimes when we see the top grandmasters playing. I really don't care who wins. I think the better player should be winning, and I think in this game Sergey Karjakin won the game, fully deserved. And I really don't like when players lose their games, maybe by a mouse slip or something. This was pure domination by Sergey Karjakin. Congratulations, great game by Sergey, and he has maybe now the opportunity to go forward. Maybe he can move up to the best 8, because I wanted to show now the current standings. Here are the standings after 10 rounds. We have Anish Giri, really great performance, 6.5 points. Ding 6, Carlsen 6, Wesley So 6, also very interesting tournament. Hikaru is there, 5.5 points. Jan Nepomniachtchi, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and Alireza is so far in the top 8. So if the result is like this, then these 8 players would play the quarterfinal stage. So this is it now from the day 2. I'll follow, of course, this tournament further. If you want to see more games from this tournament, check out my skilling the playlist. Here is the link. And if you want to know more about this strategy, this pawn majority attack, here is also the link. I've created in my Basics in Chess series videos more than 160 videos, so you can maybe check them out. Here's also the Basics in Chess series. And if you like my content, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.